Ladies and gentlemen, it is my extreme pleasure and honor to introduce to you Miss Brigitte Gabriel.
Wow. Thank you. Wow. Oh, fantastic. I love this. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow, this is fantastic. Thank you, Roger, for doing such a great job turning out all these people. I appreciate your leadership. Is he a great chapter leader or what? I am so excited. I love being here. I cannot begin to tell you how much I was looking forward to getting here and being with you all. There is nothing like traveling across the country and meeting our members and our chapter leaders and our chapter members and people who are friends of the organization, who some travel hours. I was speaking yesterday in Orlando. We had people drive 2 hours and 3 hours to come to the presentation. You know, and people ask me all the time, Brigitte, don't you get depressed talking about national security and radical Islam and border security and immigration and all these heavy-duty subjects? And I say, of course I do. I'm just like you. But what keeps me energized is when I travel across our amazing country and meet wonderful people like you who take the time out of their busy schedule to show up and hear me speak about how we can make a difference for our country. You are truly the wind beneath my wings, and I'm so honored to be with you tonight. This is so amazing being here with everybody. I want you to know that tonight, as we're standing here, we have chapters and groups of Act for America meeting across the country nationwide. So, thank you. So sometimes when you feel frustrated and you feel alone and you think to yourself, am I a voice in the wilderness? Nobody's listening to me. Nothing is happening in our country. I want you to realize that there are a lot of people just like you across the United States of America who are coming together, meeting together, whether at Starbucks, whether at their church, whether at their club, whether at their homes, whether in their living room, whether in their local libraries, coming together and working together and networking together. We may not be together in the same place at the same time, but I want you to know that we are the majority. People who love America. People who love America, who care about our nation, people who come from different backgrounds, different race, different faith, different gender, different everything, put their differences aside and came together to protect our nation. Because let's face it, everyone recognizes that there is something going majorly wrong in our country right now. America as we know it is being transformed before our very eyes. The flag that once flew on every street corner in the United States is now considered a hate symbol on college campuses. Athletes who used to break out in tears of pride during the national anthem are now kneeling in protest. Patriotism is seen as hateful. Freedom of speech is being eliminated by the tyranny of tolerance. And our police officers are being killed by criminals and thugs while the mainstream media victimizes their killers. America is at a crossroad of irreversible consequences. And it is our duty, it is our calling as Americans to come together, those of us who love our country, who bleed red, white, and blue, to say, how can we work together to save our country, to preserve our freedoms, to walk in the footsteps of our founding fathers and do everything we can to preserve those freedoms for the next generation. Because here is why this is so important. Our founding fathers gave everything, and most of them died broke to give us the country that we have today. The least we can do is preserve it for the next generation. Thank God, we don't have to freeze in Valley Forge and wait till the morning to see whether our flag is still waving or not. Today, every single one of us can make a difference. Some people are called to serve in uniform. Our brave military heroes who are deployed, who are wearing the uniform, who are serving here and overseas, they serve our country and make sure that we can enjoy our freedoms. Our job is to serve just as much. We have a duty just as much to serve in our civilian clothing, in our communities, in our neighborhoods, making sure we call our elected officials, making sure we talk to our neighbors, making sure we uphold those freedoms that our founding fathers introduced and most of them died broke to give us. This is our duty to fight for these freedoms. And right now, our freedoms are under assault. Freedom of speech is under assault. I want you to know that today, the fact that I'm speaking here tonight, CARE moved heaven and earth, sent the press release out, contacted the county commissioners, contacted the church and the pastor where I was speaking last night, demanding that this presentation be canceled tonight. Demanding. And isn't it rich? This coming from a designated organization, CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, who is also an unindicted co-conspirator in the largest terrorism trial ever in the history of the United States, where our government sued the Holy Land Foundation, one of the largest Islamic charities in America, and handed down 108 guilty verdicts to Muslim Americans and Muslim American organizations raising money in the United States to send to overseas to support terrorist organizations. Isn't it rich coming from a terror-linked organization trying to stop people like me and you who love our country to stand here tonight and speak in defense of our American values and our American freedoms? But we will not be silenced and we will not be stopped because we are following in the footsteps of brave heroes, our founding fathers, who set the example, who set the bar so high that we as American will know exactly how to look at leadership and what leadership have done in the past, and that we can do the same. Not everybody is called to be able to be an activist, but we know the importance of being active as Americans. You know what sets America different than any other country in the world? America is a spirit. America is not a geographical location. America is an attitude forged in bravery and patriotism. And this is why every single one of us is here tonight, because we are that spirit. So as you can see, I'm very passionate about our freedoms and our country, our beloved the United States. Thank you. And I'm obviously surrounded by people who feel the same way. And a lot of people ask me, Brigitte, where does this passion come from? How can you be so energetic and so passionate? And for those of you who do not know where this passion comes from, allow me to share with you 5 minutes of my background, because most of you know me and have seen me, whether on TV, on Fox, or have heard me on different radio stations, or maybe you have watched me on the internet. But a lot of you who hear me as a terrorism analyst do not know my background and what forged this love of country and of freedom in my heart. You see, I was born and raised in Lebanon, which used to be the only majority Christian country in the Middle East. We were fair, we were open-minded, we were tolerant, we were multicultural. We prided ourselves on our multiculturalism. We had open borders. We welcomed everyone into our country because we wanted to share with them the westernization and the good life that we had created in Lebanon. Muslims used to send their children to study in our universities because we had built the best universities in the Middle East. They graduated and worked in our economy because we had built the best economy in the Middle East, even though we did not have any oil. Beirut became known as Paris of the Middle East, the banking capital of the Middle East. Unfortunately, all that began to change very fast. You see, my 9/11 happened to me in 1975 when radical Islamists blew up my home, bringing it down, burying me under the rubble wounded. I ended up in a hospital for 2.5 months. And as I laid in a hospital bed, hooked up to IVs in both arms, going from one surgery to another, I would ask my father, why did they do this to us? And my father would tell me, because the Muslims hate us, they consider us infidels, and they want to kill us. So I learned since I was a 10-year-old little girl that I am wanted dead simply because I was born into the Christian faith and lived in a Christian town. Whether I practiced my religion or not, it was irrelevant in my enemy's eyes. And when you hear this type of stories, you are reminded of the Yazidis who were persecuted because of who they were as a group. Or the Armenians in the beginning of the century, when 2 million Armenians were massacred in the Middle East and Turkey, simply because of their faith and who they were. Jewish people in the crowd can relate to that because a lot of the Jews were basically slaughtered, fumigated, put in concentration camps simply because they were Jews. They could have been atheist Jews. The fact that they were Jews, they were hated just because of that simple fact. I can relate to that in a way that most Americans can't, because most Americans have never experienced persecution for who they are as a race or as a group or as a faith. But those of us who escaped tyranny to get here, who come from different parts of the world, understand persecution. We ended up leaving the hospital and coming back home, but my home was no longer the home I left. I ended up living underground in an 8-by-10 room in an underground bomb shelter, without electricity, without water, and very little food. And that's where I lived for the next 7 years of my life, from the age of 10 till the age of 17, robbed of my youth. To get some food, we would crawl out under the bombs, and we would dig out different greenery and dandelions and different vegetation that grew around our bomb shelter because it was the only salads we had to eat. To get some water, we would crawl to a nearby spring to get some water. And what used to take us a 5-minute walk would take us hours because we were surrounded by Islamic snipers shooting at us. And every time before we left our bomb shelters, we would say our last goodbyes because we did not know if we're going to come back alive or dead just to get a drink of water. In the wintertime, where we lived in the mountains, and it was so cold. And my father would go out, and he would break twigs. And, oh, hi, Mick. My friend. And my father would break twigs from the trees and bring them into the bomb shelter, and he would make a fire, and he would pour kerosene or benzene on the fire and light it so we can warm up. And we didn't have any ventilation. We had only one entrance into the bomb shelter. And many nights we had an agreement. Whoever woke up first would drag the other two outside and slap them on the face to wake them up. Because many nights we would pass out because of carbon monoxide poisoning. And this became my life. And I remember when we first went into the bomb shelter, my father would say, oh, this is only going to be a couple of weeks, because then all the world nations, the world big nations, are going to see and hear about the massacres that are happening to the Christians in Lebanon. America is going to come. Canada is going to come. Australia is going to come. England is going to come. France is going to come. And we waited and we waited and we waited, and nobody came. 3 years into our ordeal, I remember one of our militia friends stopped by and he said, Brigitte, I just want you to know that we heard a lot of chatter on the radios and we think we're going to be attacked tonight. And he said, if I don't see you tomorrow, I wish you a merciful death. And he left. And I remember at the age of 13, putting on my Sunday best, my Easter dress, because I wanted to look pretty when I am dead, knowing that when they come to slaughter me, there would be no one to bury me. And I remember sobbing, begging my mother, I don't want to die. I'm only 13 years old. Please do something. I don't want to die. And there was nothing my mother could say to me. And we sat in the corner of our bomb shelter, and my father started reading from Psalms. I shall walk into the valley of death and hear no evil, for thou art with me. And my parents said to me, they said, when they come to slaughter us tonight, we will create a distraction. We just want you to run towards the Israeli border and don't look back. We lived a long life. You are a young child. Just run to the Israeli border. Thank God I did not have to make that decision that night, because that's the night when Israel came in physically into Lebanon and established the security zone and set up artillery bases around our town to stop the Islamists from coming in and massacring us. And this is how we ended up living. This is how we ended up living for the next 5 years until 1982, when Israel invaded Lebanon. And the only reason Israel invaded Lebanon is because at that time, all the Islamists from around the Middle East came to fight in Lebanon against the Jews, wanting to use Lebanese democracy to basically topple our democracy, fight the Jews, kill the Israelis, and throw them into the sea. Something Yasser Arafat wanted to do out of Lebanon because he could not do out of Jordan. And Syria was shelling Israel using Lebanese territories to the point that all the northern towns in Israel were living in bomb shelters just like us. Their lives ceased to exist. So Israel was working with the Christians in Lebanon, helping the Christians take back their democracy and kick out the radical Islamic element that had taken control of the country at that time. Because by 1982, we had 11 Islamic terrorist organizations operating out of Lebanon, including the PLO. And that's how, and Israel ended up going all the way to Beirut, working with the Christians, kicked out Yasser Arafat and his cronies all the way to Tunisia. And that's how we came out of the bomb shelter and back to rebuilding our lives. I ended up moving to Israel and becoming a news anchor for World News based in Jerusalem from 1984 till 1989. And that's when we started seeing a rise of radical Islamic terrorism across the globe in different continents. And as I read the news as a news anchor night after night after night, I started realizing that there was a pattern developing. The name of the perpetrators were always Islamic: Ahmed, Muhammad, Hussein, Ali. The name of the victims were always Westerners, Christians and Jews. Terry Waite, Terry Anderson, Colonel Higgins, the Achille Laura, the TWA flights, the Pan Am flights. And I can go on and on. As a matter of fact, in my first book titled Because They Hate, I list pages upon pages upon pages of all the attacks committed against the West and against the United States, where America hit the snooze button and went back to sleep. And I started realizing that what I used to think was a regional problem between a majority Muslim Middle East trying to either kill or expel the minority Christians and Jews had become a worldwide problem. But the world was not paying attention. The world was not connecting the dots. The world lacked imagination. And isn't this exactly what the 9/11 Commission report said to us? We lacked imagination. It's not that we did not know how much the radical Islamists hate us or the terrorists hate us. It's not like we are faced with an enemy that doesn't tell us how they feel about us. After all, Al-Qaeda attacked the World Trade Center the first time in 1993. The only difference between the attacks of 1993 and 2001 is the buildings did not come down the first time. Al-Qaeda attacked the Kubar Towers in 1995. They attacked our embassies in Kenya and Tanzania in 1997. They attacked the USS Cole in 2000. And then they were so confident that we were so asleep and so apathetic that they came back and re-attacked the World Trade Center the second time in 2001. And this time they brought the buildings down. Attacked the World Trade Center, attacked the Pentagon, and killed almost 3,000 Americans on that day. It's not like we did not know what our enemy was after and how much they hate us. We have never been faced with an enemy that tells us exactly how much they hate us, why they hate us, what they want to do to us. After all, they not only tell us how much they hate us, they issue press releases about it, they record videos and put it on the internet, they have websites, they have chat rooms, they even send letters to the president. Remember how Osama bin Laden sent a letter to George Bush? Telling him why they hate the United States and why he wants to attack the United States, asking George Bush to convert to Islam. Remember that? Osama bin Laden? So it's not like we do not know why they hate us and what they want to do to us. They attack us because they hate the freedoms and everything we stand for. And by the way, I want to make sure I'm not talking about all Muslims. There are plenty of Muslims, actually the majority of Muslims in the world, who are not strapping bombs on their bodies wanting to go into this room and blow us up. There are a lot of people who just want to live in peace. Act for America works with a lot of moderate Muslims. We have Muslims who are members. We have Muslims who speak at our national conference. Despite the fact that the Southern Poverty Law Center tells you, oh my gosh, Act for America is the anti-Muslim organization. How rich is that coming from an organization that's racist and bigoted itself, who accuses people like us of being a racist and bigot? How rich is that for the Southern Poverty Law Center to accuse Act for America of being a hate group, because they are the ones who are discriminating against the African Americans working for them, calling them the help. They are the ones who are acting like masters. 25 employees of the Southern Poverty Law Center sent letters to the board of directors telling them about the discrimination, the belittling, the sexual harassment, the intimidation against the help, the African Americans or the people of color who are working for the Southern Poverty Law Center. The help, or what they were referring to as servants, because of their white supremacy at the leadership, that the employees couldn't even go to the leaders and complain because it was like the clique group, because they were not listening to them. It got to the point where the situation boiled so much that finally they couldn't take it anymore. And now, as we see, the SPLC is unraveling before our very eyes. These are the people who are accusing people like us, who come together and work together and encompass everybody, as racist. Act for America is when they say, oh my gosh, you know, they are a hate group, you do not want to talk to them. Really? I've got news for them. So the SPLC accuses us of haters. And here we are, people who come together. When after September 11th happened, you know, when I was working in the Middle East and I was reporting on all these events and I was hearing about these radical Islamic activities, I couldn't believe my eyes. While I was working in Jerusalem, because a lot of people do not know how I ended up in the United States. When I was working in Jerusalem, I met a journalist that worked with me in the English department. We got married, and I ended up coming to the United States in April 29th, 1989, to the United States by marriage. Thank you. And I left everything behind, and I thought, I am here in America to start a new life. All the crazies I left behind. And I came to America, and this is why I am so passionate about immigration, which is a subject that Act for America takes on big time right now. And while the Southern Poverty Law Center or CARE would want you to think that we are only a one issue, as if all we do is sit around all day long and talk about Sharia, this is not the case. While we may have started in 2001 when the organization started as a national security organization focused on protecting America from the threat of radical Islam to world peace and our national security, at that time in 2001, radical Islamic terrorism was the biggest threat to the United States. Antifa did not exist. Black Lives Matter did not exist. MS-13 gang members did not exist on our streets the way they exist today. As Act for America grew, we right now focus and encompass so many issues. Radical Islamic terrorism is only one out of our issues. We focus on border security. We focus on immigration. We focus on stopping human trafficking. We focus on anything that threatens the security and the safety of all Americans and from all threats, foreign and domestic. That's what Act for America does. And this is why I'm passionate and talking about the immigration as well. So I'm going to talk to you as an immigrant right now as to why I'm passionate about this issue and why Act for America works so hard to secure our borders. You see, when I came to this country as a legal, and the magic word here is legal immigrant to the United States, I came here, I paid for my own airline ticket. I came here, I paid for my doctors to do all the blood tests and all the blood work because I had to go and be tested for tuberculosis, for leprosy, to make sure I'm not bringing any diseases into the country. And I hate needles. And I had to go there and be poked in this arm and poked in this arm and this doctor and that doctor, paying out of my own pocket for all of that stuff, which is fine. I paid for my attorneys to do my papers. And once I got the green card, I had to study a 2-inch thick book written by the daughters of the American Revolution about America's history, America's Constitution, our judicial system, our Bill of Rights. And I had to pass a written exam as well as a verbal exam in English about the Constitution, America's history, our judicial system, etc., in order for me to become an American. By the time I became an American, I knew more about America's history than my own American-born husband did. I'm the type of immigrant you want to bring to the United States. Because when you fight so hard for something, when you work so hard to earn something, you value it. You want to be the best you can be to show the people of America that you are trustworthy and should have been awarded the American citizenship. Because the American citizenship is the most important, incredible, and precious treasure you can ever attain. Because once you make it to America, you have made it to heaven. Despite the fact that we have people in this country who badmouth America, who do not see anything good in America, they whine about America. If America is so bad, then how come people from all over the world, even those they hate us, even those who badmouth us overseas, why are they crossing oceans to cut here? They cannot wait to get into the United States. So for those who hate America so much, who think we are not good and we are a horrible country, I tell them we'll give them a one-way ticket to get the hell out of here and to whatever country they want to go and leave this country to us. And you know, isn't it amazing that all these people, all these stars, you know, the Hollywood stars and all these big lefty crazies, you know, who say, oh my gosh, remember during the election, if Donald Trump wins, I am leaving the country. How come they haven't left yet? Please, we'll take up an offering. We'll ship you. Rosie O'Donnell, just choose a country. Joy Behar, just go. You know? I mean, I bet you every single one of you will chip in into a bucket to ship them outside of this country. Last time I checked, America is the greatest country on the face of the planet, and everybody's trying to get here. Everybody. Everybody. And that's why on our southern border right now, it's not only the Mexicans who are trying to get here. It's the Pakistanis are trying to get here. People from Nigeria are trying to get here. People from Egypt are trying to get here. People from Syria, people from Iraq, people from Indonesia, people that hate our guts are trying to do everything they can, including sneaking through our borders to come to the United States. That's how great of a nation we have. But I'm a firm believer that we must secure our borders, that we must protect our country to preserve our national identity. I'm telling you, This is why we need to come together and work together and understand what's at stake and why we need to secure our borders and why we need to preserve our country. You know, people tell me, well, what got you to become an activist? They ask me, well, how did you start your activism? When I came to America, my husband and I started a TV production company. I was working 6 months out of the year and enjoying my, playing with my children and staying at home for 6 months out of the year, enjoying the perks of the entertainment industry. Until 9/11, 2001. 9/11 was a defining moment for the United States. It changed the way we think. It changed the way we travel. It changed the way our life. Everything changed. Now, anytime you travel, you have to take your shoes off, your belt off, your cell phone off, your big watch, your watch off, whatever. Go through security machines. We didn't have any of that before 9/11. Remember when we used to walk up straight to the gate when we had a loved one or a friend coming? The older people will remember, the young ones won't. Because unfortunately, they never had to experience that. My own children do not remember just walking up to the gate to welcome a friend. Those days are gone. September 11th changed America. It was a defining moment for the United States, but it was especially a defining moment for me. On September 11th, we all did the same thing. We were glued to our TV screens, watching the images of the World Trade Center come down again and again and again. We all were brokenhearted. We cried. We felt frustrated. We felt sad. We felt helpless. We could not believe that somebody would hijack airliners and fly them as human missiles into buildings with the intentions of killing tens of thousands of people. Thank God the planes did not hit the buildings after 9 a.m. Otherwise, they could have killed 50,000 people who work in those buildings every day. It's because they hit it before 9 a.m. that, thank God, we were able to get a lot of people out. And so unfortunate that the tragedy of the loss of 3,000 people that died, it could have been much, much worse. On that day, my 2 daughters came home from school as I was watching TV crying. And my youngest daughter, who was around my age when I was wounded in the hospital, looks at me and she says, "Mommy, why did they do this to us?" And I found myself looking into my daughter's eyes and repeating to her the exact same words my father said to me. They hate us because they consider us infidels and they want to kill us. Here we were 2 generations apart. I was a young Lebanese girl. She's a young American girl. I spoke Arabic. She speaks English. 8,000 miles apart. 2 continents apart. 30 years apart. And I had to repeat to my daughters the same words. That day was my defining moment. That's the day I vowed that I will do everything I can to make sure that my daughter will never ever have to look into her child's eyes and repeat to him or to her what my daddy said to me and what I had to say to her. That day I was reborn as an activist. I laid on my couch in the family room. As you all remember, September 11th happened on a Tuesday morning. Until Sunday, I'm laying in my pajamas in front of the TV screen, like we all did, glued to our TVs, waiting to hear any answer. How many survivors did we find, etc., etc. Thinking, what can I do to make a difference? What can I do for my country? I'm going to use a phrase that a lot of people forget about nowadays, the new generation. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Unfortunately, today, we have young brats who don't understand the history of the United States, who are of the entitlement mentality. 22-year-old socialist nitwits who can't even explain to you what socialism is, but they call themselves as socialists. Those are the ones who expect people like us to work and pay for them to spend their day at Starbucks sipping cappuccino. Isn't that the truth? That's the truth. So I said, what can I do to make a difference for my country? And I realized I'm going to educate millions of uninformed Americans about the threat of radical Islam to world peace and our national security. And I started speaking, and I started educating, and I started speaking from groups as small as 8 people meeting at Frankie's Ribs at Pungo, Virginia, where the average age was like 85, and every other word I would say, they would say, huh? Now you know why I speak loud. Lots of practice. So I would speak to a group as small as 8 people meeting at Frankie's Ribs in Pungo, to groups as large as 10,000 sitting in some of these mega churches. And one question kept coming up, no matter where I spoke, no matter what area I spoke at, no matter the age group. Now that I'm informed, what can I do? Give me something to do. And I realized very quickly, we can educate until the cows come home. Nothing is going to change. We're not lacking education. If you go on Google right now and type in radical Islam, you'll come up with 60,000 pages. It's not information that we are lacking. What we are lacking is what to do with the information to make a difference. That's when I realized education is important, but education by itself is not sufficient. Education must be coupled with action. And that's when I launched Act for America, our chapter network. I'm proud to tell you that Act for America today has over 1 million members. Over 1 million members. We have helped pass 102 bills on the federal level as well as the state level to protect America. And I want to thank you, our members who are sitting in this crowd, and our chapter leaders and our chapter members, because I knew some of you made phone calls to your elected officials, signed petitions, sent letters to Fox News, sent letters to this, to that, whatever that came down. It's because of you that together we are making a difference for our country. Because without you, I cannot do it alone. You are the ones, you are the instruments. And I want you to know that I'm a firm believer that every single one of us in life, no matter what trials and tribulations we go through, no matter what difficulty, every single one of us in life is prepared to make a difference. And all these challenges and all these difficulties we go through, they are nothing more than a sharpening tool so we can be effective in whatever our destiny is and whatever we are called to do. And this is why I'm a firm believer that today, when I speak to crowds, I ask people, what is your destiny? What are you called to do? How can you be active? What have you been prepared to do? Some people are prepared to lead chapters. Some people are prepared to be activists. Some people are prepared to go meet with elected officials or donate to political campaigns. Every single one of us can make a difference for the country. And again, today, our country is facing such an incredible challenge with people attacking our country from everywhere. We talk about immigration. We heard a lot about immigration. And by the way, before I get into immigration, I believe what has been happening in the news with the whole Russia collusion delusion, that now we find out that there was absolutely no truth it. I mean, people like us knew exactly from day one that there's nothing to it. But CNN, MSNBC, CNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, they were obsessed with the whole Russia collusion. Only now for the American public to wake up and realize they were sold a lie. Deception, lies, fabrication, manipulation, blackmail. We deserve better as people, and we deserve better as a country. And while the mainstream media talk about fake news, and they wonder why President Donald Trump calls them fake news, the fake news media that has been driving the agenda, don't listen to them. So when you hear people putting you down and calling you name and calling you Islamophobes, trying to intimidate you, trying to stop you from calling your elected officials or showing up to meetings or coming to meetings like this, don't listen to them. Can you imagine if I would have listened to the New York Times back in 2008 when my second book came out titled They Must Be Stopped? The New York Times did an interview with me. And they interviewed me for 2 hours. And in 2 hours worth of material and talking, I mean, look how much I talked, and it has not been even 15 minutes. You know how much information I can squeeze in 15, 20 minutes. So, thank you, darling. Thank you. So after 2 hours talking to the New York Times, they couldn't find one quote that they can use against me. So the reporter titled the article, Radical Islamophobe. I'm not just an Islamophobe, I am a radical Islamophobe. Even though they couldn't find one quote to use against me. Can you imagine if I would have listened to the New York Times back then and stopped speaking? Here we are, 2019. My organization has 1 million members. We have passed 102 bills to protect America. The only reason people call you names is because they cannot argue with your facts. The minute somebody calls you a name, you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're an Islamophobe, you're a homophobe, you're a xenophobe, you're a whatever phobe, whenever they call you any name, know one thing, you know more than they do because you know the facts and they are afraid to argue with you or debate you on the facts. All they have to do is call you a name. But what they don't realize is, once they called you the name, okay, then what? So I'm an Islamophobe. Big brouhaha. I mean, seriously. Okay, so you call me an Islamophobe. They overplayed their hand so much, and they threw, names against people, trying to character assassinate people. You're an Islamophobe. I'm an Islamophobe. No. I'm a radical Islamophobe. I'm a racist. I'm a neo-Nazi. How do you like my white supremacist tan? Okay? How do you like those white supremacist lips? I mean, seriously. But this is what the SPLC and CARE, comparing us to the Ku Klux Klan, I mean, you read this stuff and you think to yourself, what are these people talking about? Are they that crazy? They are that crazy. But understand, because they cannot argue with our facts, they call us names. So next time they call you names, just remember that. That's all they can do. They cannot do anything else. Good. Now that we got the name calling out of the way, now you can call your elected officials. You can pass bills. You can meet up. It's like when I was talking with Roger, we were concerned. Oh my God, CARE sent the press release. Are we going to have demonstrators? And I wasn't concerned because, look, I've been doing this since 2002. I have seen my share of demonstrators. And I was thinking, oh, I hope Roger's not going to be so worried and concerned. And oh my gosh, I love my chapter leaders. I worry about them. Little did I know about Rogers. I show up here, Roger's like, they're not going to dare show up in here. They don't want to mess with me. Thank you, Roger. You know why? Because they know he's not going to back down. See, cowards are only good at screaming and yelling and calling names. But when you confront them, they back away because it is their nature. So just remember who you are, what your truth is, that you are an American who bleeds red, white, and blue. And you can stand up and you can debate anybody who hates this country, who does not have a place to be in this country, and know that you are standing on the truth. And they will fear you. They're not going to get into a debate with you. All you have to do is know who you are on the inside and your core and stand on your truth. Always remember that. People respect a strong person. So, we started Act for America, and I'm proud to tell you that now we are nationwide, we are very organized, we are very mobilized, and I am here to encourage you about why you need to be involved, why you need to be active, why we are an organization of love, an organization of unity. When you look at this room, you will see a tapestry of color: black, white, Hispanic, Asians, Chinese, Lebanese, brown-skinned, white-skinned, Irish, everybody. People in this room represent America. People in this room, we may not agree on every single issue. We might not walk down the line on every single issue. But we are here tonight because our love for our country trumps everything else. And we are here to protect her. So I am here. I did not want to get into nitty-gritty about things, but at least I wanted to be with you, to inspire you, to empower you, to motivate you, to let you understand that we are growing. We are nationwide. We are mobilizing. And now more than ever, we need to mobilize even more in order to protect the country, especially with the immigration issue being a major issue. Because I want you to know that the refugees and the illegal criminal aliens who are coming into our country are costing us not only billions of dollars to the United States annually, but are also bringing diseases with them that were once eradicated from the United States that are now infecting people. I'm speaking in the state of Florida. Do you know that tuberculosis is exploding in Florida? The top 5 states where tuberculosis is exploding in the country. By the way, 18 states are now dealing with tuberculosis pandemic. But the top 4 states are Florida, California, New York, and Texas. Think about that. When was last time you heard these issues discussed on your local Florida television, no matter what city you live in Florida? Nothing. Nobody wants to talk about it. We are dumbing down, not to mention the human traffickers, not to mention the MS-13 gangs. You know, when I talk about MS-13 gangs, do you know there are 3,500 MS-13 gang walking the streets of Washington, D.C. right now? 3,500 members of MS-13 gang. Is this really what we want to bring into our communities? We at Act for America want to make sure that America welcomes all legal immigrants who are willing to do it the right way. But we do not want criminals bringing diseases into the country, bringing human traffickers into the country, bringing drugs into the country, belittling or bringing down our standards of living to accommodate illegal criminal aliens. And I write in my book, Rise, and by the way, I titled my book Rise, Rise in Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom, because we must rise to protect the country. And when I talk about in the chapters about immigration, I give an example of the city of Denver. Do you know that the city of Denver brought down the penalty for defecating on the street? Right. So now if you are in Denver, you can literally drop your pants down and just do it on the side of the road, because the reason why they brought it down is they have a problem with illegal immigrants, bigger problem than San Francisco and Philadelphia. And that's a punishable crime that you will be arrested. It used to be before May 2017 that you could be arrested for defecating on the sidewalks. But because it's an arrestable crime, and they did not want illegal criminal aliens arrested, the city of Denver changed its rules. So when people defecate on the streets right now, it's not an arrestable, punishable crime worth of deportation. When was last time you heard that? People don't talk about these things, but we are bringing our standards to the level of third world countries, and none of us want that. Look what's happening in San Francisco. Look what's happening in Seattle. There was an article about Seattle, our dying city, and it was by the Seattle News. Just imagine, even the leftists in Seattle are realizing that their city is dying because of what they're bringing into the city. This is not what we want for America. And I don't believe any American who is sane wants anything like this in our country. We want people to come here legally. We do not want them to break the law to get here. What's so unique in my book, Rise, and by the way, I titled it Rise in Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom, not because it's a religious book, but what people don't realize is that Judeo-Christian values are the foundation of Western civilization. That's the foundation that made Western civilization great. When you hear about freedom of speech, where do you think that comes from? Where do you think that comes from? Debating ideas and agreeing to disagree and hoping that somebody will come up with a better idea. We in America agree that we can get together and passionately debate ideas, hoping that we will learn something from each other, and respectfully agreeing to disagree, walking away from the table, learning something new. Where do you think that came from? The Bible says, come, let's reason together. In Israel today, they have yeshiva students sitting all day long, and all they do is debate the Bible. It's a part of the fabric of our foundation as people who come from a Judeo-Christian background. This is why we have the freedoms that we have, of freedom of speech and freedom of expression and all of these type of freedoms that are non-existent in people with other cultures, but they are here. And this is why in my book, Rise, I discuss different things facing the nation. Whether I'm talking about what's happening, I have a chapter titled Operation Indoctrination, about what's happening, how we're losing the next generation in our public schools and our schools nationwide. I have a chapter titled The Leftist Islamist Coalition, how now they're coming together and working together against our country. I have a chapter about the lamestream media and Soros' funding of lamestream media and controlling the talking points of lamestream media. I have a chapter talking about terror at the gates, talking about the people that we are bringing into our country as refugees or under the refugee status. By the way, I don't know how many of you have read in Hungary today, there was an article about a Hungarian refugee who was an ISIS member that beheaded 21 people, who came into Hungary as an ISIS refugee, as a refugee, and later found out who his identity is. This is what we're talking about. But what makes my book Rise so important is at the end of every chapter, I have a section titled Rise Up and Act, where I give different points about 3 things you can do under 10 minutes that will make a difference for the country, and you can do them while sitting in your pajamas in the morning at 7 a.m. sipping your coffee. How many of you love to be able to do that? Easy, simple. People are busy, but I am here to empower you. I am here to inspire you. I am here to share my message with you so you can share it with others. When you get the book tonight, make sure you get a copy for you and get 3 other copies. Give it to the teacher of one of your students or one of your children in public schools. Donate a book to your public library. Give a book as a gift to a friend. Each one should get 4 books and help me spread the message, because we need to get the message out. And your donation is tax deductible to the organization. It's not like you're buying it from Barnes and Noble. Your donation is tax deductible 100% when you get the book. Help us educate. But I am here also to not only share the problems with you, but also help you become a part of the solution. How many people want to be a part of the solution? Raise your hand. Thank you. I'm talking to the right people. People tell me, what can we do? Something simple and quick. The first thing you can do is go to actforamerica.org and become an activist. And here's why we want you to become an activist. It doesn't cost you a dime. Let me put that up front. We want you active because we want to be able to reach you when there is a problem, when there is a bill coming down for a vote, and we want you to call your elected official. You need to be signed up as an activist in order to get those emails. We send an email once a week on Wednesday, 3 things you can do under 10 minutes to make a difference for the country. And they are usually according to whatever is happening that week, whether in Congress, whether in different places around the country, whether with Fox News. Remember when they suspended Jeanine Pirro last week? Over 30,000 phone calls and emails from Act for America went to the president of Fox News saying, bring back Jeanine Pirro. Those are the type of action alert that we send out, and we want to be able to reach you. And I know I'm speaking to people in Florida, so I know a lot of you somewhere in different locations other than here. So make sure you sign up, because we send you emails and action alerts about different bills that are introduced in different states, where if you are, let's say, have a summer home in Long Island, New York, or whatever, and there's a bill coming down for a vote, we can reach you there knowing that you are a citizen there as well, so we can notify you to call your elected official. And many people tell me, Brigitte, what is my voice going to count? I'm only one. My elected official needs to hear from 40,000 people before they do something. Wrong. I talk to elected officials all the time. And I ask them, how many people do you need to hear from to make an issue your top priority? You will be shocked. 40 to 50 people. That's it. What does that tell you? Not many people call their elected officials. That's why the left gets away with things, because they're bombarding their elected officials. Our side doesn't. 40 to 50 people on a federal level. 10 to 12 people on a state level. Here is the science behind the numbers. They believe if one person makes a phone call or writes an email or a letter, he or she are representing 1,000 couch potatoes who feel the same way but are too lazy to make a phone call or write a letter, yet they vote on election day. That translates to 40 to 50,000 voters on election day. That can make or break an election. Know your power, the power of your voice. Can you imagine? We have more than 40 people sitting in this room right now. Can you imagine if 40 of you call your elected official about something? That's the numbers that you represent. Not just 40, but 40,000. Know your power. That's why when we send an email and we say, call your elected official, please make sure you make that phone call. And please make sure you call your Democratic elected officials as well as your Republican elected officials. Because here is the difference between the left and the right. The left calls the Republican elected officials and tighten the screws on them. We don't call the Democratic elected officials because people think, oh, Nancy Pelosi, as if Nancy Pelosi is going to listen to me. Now, Nancy Pelosi is not going to listen to you. Unless you're her constituent, then you are tallied in the numbers. So don't give up when your elected official is on the other side. Make sure you make those phone calls. Because as much as the left bombards our elected officials, we need to do the same thing to their elected officials. Make those phone calls. So we want you to become an activist. I'm not going to give you a sheet of paper to sign up here tonight, because when you get home tonight, you will have an email in your email inbox that we just sent while I'm speaking to you to sign up to become an activist. Doesn't cost you a dime. We want every single one of you signed up so you will learn how to participate. And here's why it's important that you will sign up as an activist. How many of you here have heard about an organization called Indivisible? Raise your hand. Indivisible. Okay, keep your hand raised. Keep your hand raised. Indivisible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 in the back. Okay. Look how many people are around. 7 people have heard of Indivisible. Now let me tell you what Indivisible is. Indivisible is the grassroots army of the left. They have over 6,000 groups nationwide, and they are targeting you to silence you. So when you go home tonight, type in your zip code, Indivisible, and your zip code, and you'll see how many groups are operating in your community. They are the equivalent to the chapters of Act for America, except they are an activist group. Now, I consider myself here talking to very highly intelligent, very highly educated group of conservative voters, conservative people who love this country, who understands this issue, and we've got 300 people in the room, and out of the 306 people have heard of Indivisible. And you wonder why the left is powerful? That's why we need every single one of you engaged and activated. That's why it doesn't cost you a dime to be an activist.